This story has a hopeful ending. A pregnant mother had a dream so real that she changed her entire birth plan. Her doctors were confused. Her family was worried. But the dream was right. Real story, told by a gynecologist. Not medical advice. You are safe here. Let's begin. You know, after 30 years delivering babies and sitting with expectant mothers through every possible emotion, I have learned that pregnancy does something mysterious to a woman's mind. Something we doctors cannot always measure or explain. Rachel was 7 months pregnant when she walked into my office one cloudy Tuesday morning. Her eyes carried exhaustion, but not the ordinary tiredness of growing another human inside your body. This was something deeper. She sat down slowly, placed both hands on her belly, and told me about the dream. She said it started 3 nights earlier. In the dream, she was standing in a room filled with soft, warm light. No walls she could see, just light everywhere. And she could hear a heartbeat, not from a monitor, but from everywhere at once. Then she saw a small wooden cradle, empty, rocking gently on its own. She tried to walk toward it, but her feet wouldn't move. The heartbeat grew faster, louder. She woke up gasping, her nightgown soaked through, her hands clutching her belly. It felt real, she whispered to me. Not like other dreams. This one stayed with me after I opened my eyes. She lay there in the dark for an hour, counting her baby's kicks until she finally felt him move. Only then could she breathe again. Have you ever woken from something and couldn't shake the feeling that it meant more than just a dream? Rachel tried to laugh it off the next morning. She told herself pregnancy hormones were playing tricks on her. But when she closed her eyes the following night, the same light returned. The same empty cradle. The same heartbeat racing towards something she could not see. That's when the fear began. Rachel's husband, David, found her sitting in the kitchen at 3 in the morning 3 nights later. She hadn't turned on any lights. Just sat there in the darkness, holding a cold cup of tea, staring at nothing. He knelt beside her and asked what was wrong, and she admitted she was afraid to fall asleep again. David was a good man. Practical. Grounded. He rubbed her back and reminded her gently that pregnancy dreams are famously strange. That every expecting mother he had ever known reported bizarre, vivid dreams. That it didn't mean anything was wrong with the baby. And part of Rachel believed him. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to be the kind of woman who could laugh off a strange dream and go back to sleep without a second thought. But she wasn't that woman. Not after what happened 2 years earlier. She didn't tell David this, but every night as she closed her eyes, she felt herself walking back into that dream. The warm light, the empty cradle, the heartbeat that sounded less like a lullaby and more like a warning. The details never changed. Not once. The same cradle, the same gentle rocking, the same invisible force keeping her feet frozen in place. She started researching online during the long hours when sleep felt impossible. She read about maternal intuition, about mothers who dreamed of complications before doctors found them. She also read about anxiety disorders, about how past trauma can shape present fears until they become unrecognizable. Which one was she experiencing? She couldn't tell anymore. By the end of that week, Rachel had stopped mentioning the dreams to David. She smiled when he asked how she slept, said she was fine. But alone in those early morning hours, she would lie perfectly still, feeling her baby boy move inside her, and wonder why the dream wouldn't release its hold. When Rachel finally told me about her previous pregnancy, her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. She had lost that baby at 14 weeks. No warning. No explanation that felt satisfying. Just one morning, the heartbeat was gone. She said she remembered every detail of that day. The way the ultrasound room looked. The technician's face changing. The silence afterward that felt heavier than anything she had ever carried. She went home with empty arms and a body that still thought it was growing a child. After that loss, Rachel told herself she would never take another pregnancy for granted. But she also never expected to feel this terrified. The dreams had now been coming for 12 nights in a row. Same light, same cradle, same racing heartbeat. But something new had started happening. In the most recent dream, the cradle stopped rocking. just froze mid-motion. And Rachel woke up unable to move her own body for several terrifying seconds. She didn't tell David about that part. She didn't tell anyone. Instead, she started tracking everything. Every kick. Every hour of sleep. Every unusual sensation. She filled 3 pages of a notebook with observations, hoping to find proof that the dreams meant nothing. But the proof never came. Some mornings she convinced herself she was losing her mind. Other mornings she felt certain the dream was protecting her. The whiplash between those 2 beliefs was exhausting her in ways no one could see. She looked at me across my office that day and asked a question I will never forget. Can a mother's instincts sometimes notice what others miss? Or am I just broken from what happened before? I told her the truth. Sometimes both things can be real at once. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, 3 days after Rachel's visit to my office. She was folding laundry in the living room, her pregnant belly pressing against the edge of the couch, when she felt something different. Not pain exactly, more like a heaviness. A strange, pulling sensation low in her abdomen that she couldn't quite describe. She stopped what she was doing and placed both hands on her belly, waiting. Her baby boy was moving. That much she knew. But the movements felt different somehow. Muffled. Less sharp than before. Like someone had turned down the volume on something she had grown accustomed to hearing clearly. And then she remembered the dream. In last night's version, something had changed again. The empty cradle had started to fade. Not disappear completely, but become translucent. See-through. Like it was slowly vanishing while she stood there helpless. The heartbeat had grown softer too. More distant. Rachel sat there on the couch, surrounded by unfolded onesies and receiving blankets, and felt her throat close up. She called David at work. He listened quietly, then asked if she had eaten enough that day, if she had been drinking water, if maybe she was just exhausted from the sleepless nights. All reasonable questions. All things that could explain what she was feeling. But Rachel knew the difference between hunger and intuition. She knew the difference between exhaustion and fear. She didn't argue with David. She just said she would rest and see how she felt in the morning. Then she hung up and called my office to move her appointment up by 2 weeks. The receptionist asked if she was having an emergency. Rachel hesitated. She wasn't bleeding. She wasn't in pain. Nothing she could point to and call urgent. But something inside her refused to wait anymore. She told the receptionist she just needed to be seen. Soon. Rachel arrived at my office 2 mornings later, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She hadn't. The dreams had grown more intense each night, and the physical sensation she had described over the phone had not gone away. If anything, it had become more noticeable. David came with her. I could see the concern on his face, but also something else. Uncertainty. He didn't fully understand why they were there. Rachel had tried to explain, but how do you explain trusting a dream over logic? I brought them both into my examination room and sat down. No rusing. No dismissing. I asked Rachel to tell me everything she had been feeling, even the things that sounded strange. She described the heaviness. The way her baby's movements felt different without her being able to explain exactly how. The dream that had been visiting her every single night for nearly 3 weeks. The empty cradle fading more with each passing dream. The heartbeat growing quieter. David squeezed her hand but said nothing. I remember looking at Rachel and thinking about all the mothers I had known over the years. The ones who called about something small that turned out to be life-saving. The ones who ignored their instincts and wished they hadn't. Medicine cannot measure everything. I have learned to listen when a mother tells me something feels wrong. So I scheduled an ultrasound. Not because Rachel had obvious symptoms of a crisis, but because sometimes the quietest warnings are the ones that matter most. As she lay down on the examination table, Rachel closed her eyes and placed her hands on her belly. I saw her lips move slightly. A silent prayer, perhaps. Or maybe just a conversation with the baby boy she was fighting so hard to protect. Either way, she was exactly where she needed to be. The ultrasound room was dim and quiet, the way it always is. Rachel lay on the table with her hands still resting on her belly, her eyes fixed on the monitor. David stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, his jaw tight. I watched the images appear on the screen alongside the technician. At first, everything looked normal. The baby boy was measuring appropriately. His heart was beating. His limbs were moving. But something caught my attention. Something subtle that could have been missed if we weren't looking carefully. The blood flow through the umbilical artery was restricted. Not severely. Not yet. But the waveform showed resistance that indicated the placenta wasn't delivering oxygen and nutrients as efficiently as it should. This was the beginning of what could become a serious complication. If left undetected for several more weeks, the reduced blood flow could have slowed the baby's growth, caused distress, or led to premature delivery under emergency circumstances. But because Rachel had come in early, we caught it at a stage where intervention could make a difference. I turned to her and explained what we had found. I watched her face shift from fear to something more complicated. Relief mixed with the terror of knowing her instincts had been right. David asked if the baby would be okay. I told him the truth. We had found the problem in time. We could start monitoring immediately. We could take steps to protect this little boy. But we needed to act. Rachel looked at me with tears running down her cheeks and asked one question. The dream. Did it save him? I couldn't answer that. Some things exist beyond what medicine can explain. But I knew one thing for certain. If Rachel had waited for her next routine appointment, the situation would have looked very different. Rachel was admitted that same afternoon. The hospital room felt cold and clinical compared to the warmth of her home, but she didn't complain. She lay in that bed with monitors strapped across her belly, listening to the steady whoosh of her baby's heartbeat amplified through the speakers. That sound became her entire world. The first night was the hardest. David had gone home to pack a bag and feed their cat, and Rachel found herself alone in the semi-darkness, staring at the ceiling, counting the hours until morning. The dream didn't come that night. For the first time in weeks, she slept without the empty cradle or the fading heartbeat. But the silence in her mind felt almost as unsettling. Every few hours, a nurse would come in to check the monitors, adjust the straps, record the readings. Rachel learned to read the expressions on their faces before they spoke. A small smile meant the baby's heart rate was strong. A neutral expression meant everything was stable. A furrowed brow meant they would watch more closely. On the third night, the readings changed. The restricted blood flow had not improved with the initial treatment. Rachel watched the nurse's face tighten as she reviewed the monitor strips. The baby's heart rate was showing small decelerations. Nothing critical yet. But the pattern suggested he was working harder than he should. Rachel reached for her phone and called David. She didn't cry. She just said, "You should come back tonight." He was there within an hour, still wearing his work clothes, his eyes red from crying in the car. He climbed onto the narrow hospital bed beside her and held her while they both listened to their son's heartbeat struggle and recover, through the long hours until dawn. Some nights in that hospital felt like years. By day 5, Rachel had stopped looking at the calendar. Time in that hospital room moved differently. It stretched and compressed without warning. Mornings blurred into afternoons. Afternoons dissolved into nights. The only markers were the monitor checks, the medication schedules, and the quiet conversations with David when he returned each evening after work. She started talking to her baby boy constantly. Little whispers that no one else could hear. Promises she wasn't sure she could keep. She told him about the nursery they had painted at home. About the tiny clothes waiting in the dresser drawers. About his grandparents who had already bought him a stuffed elephant. She told him he needed to stay strong, to keep fighting. The medical team increased her monitoring to every 2 hours. The restricted blood flow had stabilized but had not improved. That was the word they kept using. Stable. Not good. Not bad. Just stable. Rachel learned to hate that word. On the 6th night, she had the dream again. After nearly a week of nothing but darkness, the warm light returned. But everything was different this time. The empty cradle was gone. Completely vanished. And the heartbeat she heard was not distant or fading. It was strong. Loud. Alive. surrounding her completely. She woke up gasping, her hands flying to her belly. For one terrible second, she felt nothing. Then her baby boy kicked. Hard. 3 times in quick succession. Rachel burst into tears. When the nurse came in for the next check, the monitor showed something no one had expected. The blood flow had improved. Not dramatically, but measurably. Enough that the team started talking about continuing the pregnancy for several more weeks instead of delivering immediately. David arrived that evening to find Rachel sitting up in bed, eating real food for the first time in days. She looked at him and smiled. A real smile. The first one he had seen since they walked into the hospital. "He's okay," she whispered. "He's going to be okay." But hope in a hospital room can be fragile. Rachel learned this on the 8th night, when her baby boy grew quiet again. She had been discharged 2 days earlier with strict instructions for bed rest and twice-weekly monitoring. The improved blood flow had given everyone reason to believe the crisis was passing. Rachel allowed herself to imagine bringing her son home, to picture David installing the car seat, to dream about something other than loss. Then the movements slowed, not stopped. Rachel would have called the emergency line immediately if they had stopped. But the strong, sharp kicks she had felt after waking from that final dream became soft rolls, gentle shifts. The kind of movements that made her press her hands harder against her belly, begging silently for something stronger. She waited an hour. Then 2. She drank cold water. She lay on her left side. She ate a snack. Everything the doctors had told her to do when she worried about fetal movement. Nothing changed. David found her in the bedroom at 11 o'clock that night, still lying in the dark, still pressing her hands against her belly, tears sliding silently into her pillow. She hadn't called the doctor yet. She was afraid of what they would say, afraid of being told she was overreacting again, afraid of being told she was right. David didn't ask questions. He picked up the phone and called my emergency number himself. When I answered, I heard his voice crack. "She can't feel him anymore. Not like before. Please. We need help." Within 30 minutes, Rachel was back in the hospital, back on the monitors, back in that familiar bed, listening to the heartbeat that had become the center of her entire existence. The baby was still there, still alive, but the decelerations had returned. That night, Rachel made a decision. She asked to be induced early. The induction began at 6 the next morning. Rachel's body was not ready for labor. Her cervix was high and closed, the way bodies protect pregnancies that are not supposed to end yet. But the placenta was failing slowly, and every hour they waited carried risk neither Rachel nor the medical team was willing to accept. The first 12 hours brought nothing but mild cramping. David held Rachel's hand through each contraction, no matter how small. He fed her ice chips. He wiped her forehead. He told her she was the strongest person he had ever known. By hour 14, Rachel was exhausted. The medication had been increased twice, and still her body resisted. She looked at me with hollow eyes and asked if her baby boy would survive. I told her the truth. We were watching him closely. His heart was still beating. He was still fighting. And she needed to fight too. Hour 18 changed everything. Rachel's water broke naturally, and suddenly her body understood what it needed to do. Contractions came fast and hard. The pain was unlike anything she had imagined. She gripped the bed rails. She screamed into a pillow. She cried for her mother, who lived 3 states away and was driving through the night to reach her. And through every single contraction, she kept her eyes fixed on the monitor that showed her son's heartbeat. Up and down, struggling and recovering, just like hers. At hour 22, Rachel was fully dilated. The delivery room filled with nurses. The pediatric team arrived and stood ready. I positioned myself and told Rachel it was time to push. She pushed for 45 minutes. Her face was soaked with tears and sweat. David held one leg. A nurse held the other. And Rachel screamed with a power I have rarely witnessed in 30 years of delivering babies. Then, at 4:17 in the morning, her baby boy emerged. Small. Quiet for one terrible second. And then he cried. That sound. that beautiful, furious, loud cry. Rachel collapsed against the bed, sobbing, reaching for him before the cord was even cut. The pediatric team placed him on her chest, and she wrapped both arms around him like she would never let go. He was perfect. Tiny but perfect. Breathing. Crying. Alive. Rachel named him Lucas. It was a name she and David had chosen months earlier. Before the dreams began, before the hospital nights, before everything shifted. She held him against her chest in the quiet hour after delivery, his tiny fingers curled around her thumb, his breathing soft and warm against her skin. The neonatal team had evaluated him thoroughly. He was small for his gestational age, which confirmed what the monitors had shown. The restricted blood flow had affected his growth. But his lungs were strong. His heart was strong. He was exactly where he needed to be. As Rachel looked down at his face, she remembered the dream for the last time. The warm light. The empty cradle fading. The heartbeat growing softer. She had spent weeks believing the dream was a warning about loss. About something being taken from her. But in that hospital bed, with Lucas safe in her arms, she understood something different. The cradle wasn't fading because she was losing her baby. The cradle was fading because she was being prepared to hold the real thing. The heartbeat wasn't growing distant. It was growing strong enough to exist outside her body. The dream wasn't telling her to fear. It was telling her to pay attention. To act. To trust what she could not explain. David climbed onto the bed beside her and wrapped his arms around both of them. He kissed Lucas's forehead, then Rachel's. And he whispered, "You saved him." Rachel shook her head slowly. "We saved him together." She never had the dream again. Not once in the years that followed. But she never forgot it either. She told me once at Lucas's 6-month checkup that she still thought about those sleepless nights. About the empty cradle. About the heartbeat that wouldn't let her rest. She said she hoped every mother would learn to trust that voice inside them. The one that sounds irrational. The one that makes you move appointments and ask hard questions and show up in hospital rooms without knowing why. She said sometimes the strangest warnings are the most important ones. And looking at her healthy baby boy, I believed her.